Hello, everyone. I hope you're having a wonderful day so far today, and welcome to the LGBTQ plus Pride Alumni Identity Talk brought to you by the Offices of Career Solutions and Corporate Engagement, Inclusion and Diversity Engagement, and Development in Alumni Relations. My name is Aubrey McElrath. My pronouns are they, she, and I'm a senior studying security risk analysis. Today, I'll be one of your moderators. We're so excited to have you join us for this session celebrating gay rights and LGBT History Month, which is during the month of October. We'll get started here in a few moments.
Hi, everybody. I'm Elizabeth King, and I'm co-moderating the panel today with Aubrey. As an older member of the panel, I may also be a panelist, depending on the questions. I'm a Penn State alum, retired Vice President of Human Resources, Solutions, and Services for Starbucks Corporation. Today, I have a small consulting company, and I'm the managing partner of Elizabeth M. King Consulting, LLC. I'm also an adjunct professor in the School of Hospitality Management and a member of the IST Dean's Advisory Board. I'm really happy to be with you today. I identify as gay, and my pronouns, are she and her. I want to remind everybody that we're recording the session today. And now let's meet the other panelists. First, we have John Esteves, a 2018 graduate of IST and currently an IT project manager at Universal Parks and Resorts. Next, we have Justin Roth, a 2015 graduate of IST, and he is currently the Director of Technology Services at Coal Fire Systems. Also on our panel today is Lauren Zizula. Lauren, I hope I did your last name proudly. She is a 2017 IST grad and a technical project manager at Red Ventures. We want to welcome everyone and thank you for being part of such an amazing panel. And what I'd like to do now is just ask all of the panelists, John, Justin, and Lauren, to give us a little bit more information about yourselves.
Sounds good. Hi, everybody. My name is John Espez. My pronouns are he, him. I identify as gay and queer. I graduated from Penn State in 2018 with a major in IST under the People, Organizations, and Society route. And I also minored in entrepreneurship and innovation through the College of Smeal, and was also very involved with their minor through the College of Engineering as a teaching intern and teaching assistant. Nowadays, I'm an IT project manager working at Universal Parks and Resorts within our IT program management office. I got my PMP certification in November of last year and enjoy helping solve complex problems by utilizing technology. I'm originally from Long Island, New York, but now I'm kind of back and forth between Orlando and Lock Haven, but mostly in Lock Haven, Pennsylvania. Outside of work, I'm on the board of directors for the North Central District Allied Coalition that was formerly known as the North Central District AIDS Coalition. And I'm also on the board of the Clinton County LGBTQ Network. I'm a fiance, a dog dad, and future stepdad of 3 great kids. I've got a bucket list that I rewrote about 5 years ago with just over 150 items, of which I've completed about 50.
All right. Well, it'll be tough to follow that, but Justin Roth here. I identify as gay, pronouns he and his. As Elizabeth mentioned, I graduated from Penn State back in 2015 with an IST degree, and I'm currently working at Coal Fire Systems, which is a cybersecurity advisory and assessment services firm based in Denver, Colorado. And we have offices all across the country, so I'm based right outside DC in Northern Virginia. I've spent the past 5 or so years working in information assurance and specifically in a third-party assessment capacity for the Federal Risk and Authorization Management, or FedRAMP program, in case anybody has come across that. Prior to my time at Coal Fire, I spent a little bit of time at Accenture doing similar information assurance, cybersecurity consulting work. And then prior to that, I was a software integration engineer at Lockheed Martin. And I have a husband and 2 crazy cats who stumbled into our lives. So we are happily living this COVID life in Ashburn, Virginia, again, just outside DC. So trying to navigate the new new way of life that a lot of us are dealing with. Definitely an interesting journey.
Hi, everybody. And my name is Lauren Zizula. I am a 2017 IST grad. I identify as lesbian and my pronouns are she, her. I majored in cybersecurity, but actually none of my jobs have ever been in cybersecurity. I joined GE right out of college, 2 internships with them. And I sort of found my passion in software development as a Scrum Master. I did that for about 3 years. And then I recently, just about 2 months ago, joined a company called Red Ventures. You might have heard of some of the entities they own, like The Points Guy, Lonely Planet, CNET, TV Guide, Healthline. So they're a digital media and marketing company, and I am now a technical project manager for a telecommunications team. So a whole new industry I'm learning about. It's very exciting. I am originally from Erie, Pennsylvania. With GE, they sort of bounced us around the country quite a bit the first 2 years, but I finally landed back in Erie. I bought a house with my fiance, Jamie. She actually graduated in 2016 from IST as well, SRA degree. And we have a 1-year-old yellow lab. And so we're dog moms, and we've been spending the past year kind of flipping our house and enjoying our time now that we have a place to really call our own, which has been very fun. And my ties to IST are strong and very dear to me. I'm actually in a wedding this weekend with one of my best friends from IST that's getting married. So I'm always happy to come back to events like this and connect with fellow ISTers or alumni. And those bonds hold strong outside of this as well. So it's a little bit about me.
Yeah, thank you all for sharing those incredible accomplishments that you've had, and also for sharing what pets you have. Exciting to hear what little critters we've got running around in the background. Then just some quick housekeeping notes. If you do have questions for the panelists, please share them in the Q&A. We'll be checking that regularly, and we'll do our best to answer all of those questions. So now, without further ado, we will get into that first question. So this is for everyone. Why are you passionate about this topic? Knowing that this panel is in celebration of gay rights and LGBT History Month, can you share with us how this particular panel is of interest to you and how your life is impacted by LGBT history and rights? Who do you see as a role model or inspiration in this community? And if no one wants to go ahead and get started, I will kick that over to Lauren, since you wrapped us up on the introductions.
Sure, that's no problem. So this is very exciting to me because it's always been a little bit, I almost think of like a barrier to entry for me. In every conversation, I feel like I sort of have to come out every single time because outwardly, a lot of people don't expect that I would be a lesbian. And that's, I think this LGBTQ kind of blanket of invisibility that we have to wear and constantly are trying to even sometimes prove to other people that who we are, which is a hard thing to navigate. And so panels like this are really important to me because I want to normalize the fact that, we don't always need to talk about like examples in the classroom, saying a family with a mom and a dad, that doesn't need to be a normal example. Or, just addressing our pronouns all the time. That should be very normal. So, I'm always very excited when I see opportunities to just continue to educate people and kind of enrich ourselves. I know this is a little, what am I trying to say? Someone I look up to in this world, I guess, just the past few weeks, I don't know if any of you watch Dancing with the Stars, but JoJo Siwa is the first female to be partnered with a female pro dancer on Dancing with the Stars, which is so, so cool. I know so many young little girls look up to JoJo Siwa, and to see her dancing with a woman on a national television show is incredible. And I'm so happy to see that. I'm so proud of ABC Network for doing that, and for both of those women for going for it and owning that. So that's been a big kind of current, set of role models I've looked up to.
Yeah, that was awesome. I remember when JoJo first announced and like came out and the just immediate rallying behind her. It was really heartwarming to see. So Justin, would you like to go ahead and speak on that next?
Yeah, of course. So I grew up in Maryland, and I've since moved to Virginia, as I said, but in both of those states, marriage equality only recently became law. So that was 2013 and 2014, respectively. And so while I am very lucky to be married to an amazing husband and to have built the life that I have, I also recognize that only a few short years ago that would not have been possible for us. And so additionally, and unfortunately, marriage equality is still being actively challenged by certain groups. And so I recognize, this is a very real and present concern for many people. So I want to be a part of that conversation, on a personal level, but also as a people leader in my current role. And we'll get into this a bit later, I think, but I've done a lot of reflection and research on the importance of diversity and inclusion and authenticity in the workplace, and what the impact to the business is from an innovation perspective and a culture perspective. So I think in that capacity, this is also something that's very important to me, and something that I see as a responsibility, in my role, to make sure that I'm fostering the right kind of workplace culture that will drive success for my team and for my organization as well. So in terms of role models, I've had several, but one that comes to mind is a colleague of mine from one of my first positions after graduating from Penn State. And he also identified as gay and was very open and authentic about his identity at work. And again, this was right around the time when marriage equality was just taking hold in our area, and we also worked in an environment, a government contracting type environment, where some of the cultural realities there were just difficult to navigate, I think, as somebody who identifies the way we did. So I was very impressed by his courage to be authentic at work. And I think I've thought about him and the example that he set as I've gone forward in my career. But definitely just one of the many folks I've looked up to in that regard.
Yeah, thank you, Justin. Having a role model like that is really amazing. And hopefully by being here today, some people will be able to look up to you as a role model as well. So John, would you like to finish off this question for us?
Sure thing. So really started to realize how I really became passionate on this as I started to realize how it's impacted our everyday lives. I grew up not too far from, I grew up in Long Island, New York, so it wasn't too far from Connecticut, where the Sandy Hook shooting had happened. And then after that, it felt like the mass shootings that were going on in the country were kind of just increasingly getting more and more numb. And then the Pulse shooting had happened in Orlando, and it became way more real than I had ever imagined. And having chosen, later getting the opportunity to choose to move to Orlando after graduating from Penn State to go work for Universal, it kind of was just made me realize that there's still a lot of work that needs to be done to support equality and across not just the queer community, but several other minority groups. And so one of the key people who I look up to as role models are some Pennsylvania representatives that are representing us in Pennsylvania, like Malcolm Kenyatta and Brian Sims. Also seeing them get politically involved and encourage our younger generation to get involved regardless of the barriers that they may face is really exciting. Also getting to see Dr. Levine walk Pennsylvania through the pandemic as someone who's trans, that is just incredible to see. And being able to empathize with the trans community more by seeing those people in our everyday lives has just been incredible. And then at work, there was a senior director over a project I was working on. He is out and is married. And it was just very reassuring to see that my limitations at work were not going to be brought because of how I identify, and that the amount of work and effort I put into my career is going to be reflected in my growth.
Aubrey, can I just make a comment or two, please? So Justin brought up a really important point. I spend half my time in Seattle, Washington, and half my time here in State College. The way that LGBT are included and felt welcome and feel welcome in Pennsylvania versus Washington are very, very different, which means that we have states where we have a lot of work to do. And State College itself is one situation. You don't have to go but 5 or 10 miles outside of State College to find a totally different situation. And I tell you that because it is critical that we show up at the ballot box. Just like abortion rights are under duress from the Supreme Court, our rights could someday be under duress as well. So I really just want to encourage any of you that have not registered, which I doubt is any of you, to get registered, but even more importantly, to make sure you show up for every single election. So Aubrey, thanks.
Yeah, thank you. And I believe you are on the next question as well, if you could jump into that.
Yeah, and maybe we could start with Justin this time. What, if any, situations did you experience or observe as the biggest challenges for LGBT students when you were a student at Penn State?
Yeah, so, personally, I was very lucky in that I had a very supportive circle of friends, and I'm still very close with them today, not just within IST, but, across the university. We were quite the eclectic, group of majors and backgrounds, which was great. And we were also, each other's support systems. And so on a personal level, I was fortunate that I didn't feel disadvantaged or challenged based on my identity on a day-to-day basis, right, in social circles. I do, however, know from speaking with a number of classmates and friends that there were certain subcultures within the university community where identifying as LGBTQ is a risk, and so not attempting to generalize too much here, but I know in several of those examples, different circles within Greek life led to folks facing a good bit of ostracism based on their identity. So I think that experience is very different depending on what each of us gets involved in the university community and what our interests are, and who we choose to associate with and spend time with. I was lucky in my case, but I know others not so much. So definitely interested in others' stories here, but I think it's also indicative that we have work to do, and as does any organization with a diverse set of people and living and working together in a tight environment. I think there's always progress to be made, but yeah.
Justin, thank you. John, would you like to go next, please?
Sure thing. So for me, my biggest challenge was while I was at Penn State, I was still going through a lot of identity questions and struggles. And so while I was figuring out who I was very lucky and fortunate to grow a very close group of friends who I was able to come out to and very much understand the need for queer relationships, which at first I didn't really understand the need to have. And so I was able to grow a lot in that sense. And while I was building out goals at the start of my career at Penn State, I was very centered around career growth and traveling. And as I became a lot more comfortable with myself and understanding what it was that I wanted to do, I've seen my goals shift a lot further, not further away from just career growth and travel, but also incorporating a lot of impact focuses and work in community. And so it's been a very interesting perspective to take a look at all the things that are always changing and how we can make an impact towards our community, and how things are always shifting, not just in the world, but personally within our goals.
John, both you and Justin mentioned the importance of friends. Like, did you have to eliminate some as well as include some? You remember?
Yeah, I don't think I really needed to like eliminate friends like right off the bat. I know a lot of friendships have kind of died off just due to varying viewpoints, and I feel like it was a lot more organic than just cutting someone off. But I did know like it was very reassuring to have friends who had very different coming out experiences to help me come through my own coming out process, especially with family, and then eventually being so comfortable with it as I started after graduation to like start from the like right off the bat at work, kind of start off with me being out, so I didn't have to worry about people's opinions changing. They kind of knew that from the start.
Thank you, John. Lauren, we'll kick it over to you.
I would say that in Penn State, in the classroom and in clubs and really all things campus, I personally never felt that there were barriers I had to overcome for the way I identified. But on the same token, I really wasn't out until maybe late junior year, early senior year. So for a good part of my college career, it was something that I didn't think about very much. And then when I really entered that, I don't know, it's not a stage of my life, but coming to accept who I was, I really navigated that pretty independently. And I think I was nervous about what people would think about me, my close friends, although that I knew that they supported me, I still was really nervous. And so I didn't lean on people. If, I came out to someone in my family, they didn't take it the best way. I didn't really go back to my friends and ask for their guidance or their advice. I kind of thought it was something I had to shoulder myself. So I wish that, I could have done that differently. There probably was resources that I could have been involved with, groups, clubs, organizations. And then the only other thing I would say is social norms. Those were hard. Like I said in my first answer, a lot of people will say, well, you don't look like a lesbian. That's not true. A lot of people will get a kick out of the fact that my fiance and I, when we go out to a bar or a restaurant, and it's very, in some ways degrading, the comments that we can get. So it's social norms that have to be changed, and those are barriers that I had to overcome. But luckily it wasn't anything specifically on campus in the classroom or in organizations that I was a part of.
Thanks, Lauren. And somebody's followed up and asked me to express some ways that I was able to express my own LGBT community identity in the workplace. And, there's a couple of things I want to say is most groups, most organizations have affinity groups for LGBT. And I think it's really important if you work in a company or you end up working in a company with one, that you show your leadership and your commitment to our community by actually being part of that. It's harder as an alum to impact Penn State, which was also part of the question. So I might just go back around and ask the more recent grads if you have any ideas about how to be experiencing LGBT and how you made an impact or could express your identity through other groups that you might have been a part of. I also really, though, want to say that it's important when you're doing job searches, understand that particular company's culture as it comes to LGBT. Starbucks is fantastic. I mean, when the gay marriage, now marriage equality type acts started going on the ballot. Washington was one of the first states, and it failed the first time. And honestly, my straight allies were even more upset than my gay allies, because as somebody who grew up at Penn State in the 70s, I never expected to be in a situation where it would be on the ballot. So I just think it's critical that you develop allies, which we've talked about, and understand the culture of a company before you join it. Because it can be, I've worked in places where it wasn't such a great culture, and it makes a big difference in how you feel about your job. So does anybody have anything they'd like to add about Penn State specifically, Justin, John, or Lauren?
So, you know, not necessarily about Penn State specifically, but I would agree with you that, you know, doing that research is critical. And I think one of the things that I find is, you know, many of the tools that are available, right, Glassdoor, and I'm sure there are, you know, Indeed and many other similar sites, I think, are forums for, you know, people to speak freely and honestly about the experiences that they've had. And I think, you know, you have to know how to filter those and how to, you know, recognize sort of the context around those comments. But at the same time, I think it's great in the sense that it's, you know, it's holding organizations accountable, right? You know, I speaking for my current employer, you know, we're very attentive to what's out there, you know, on the internet about our culture and our programs. And when we, you know, when we do get negative feedback or criticism in this area, we take it to heart, and there's a lot of you know, leadership discussion around that, and it does drive a lot of positive change, I think. So, you know, participating in those or leveraging those as a job seeker, I think they're a great resource, and I would encourage folks to do that for sure.
Okay, Aubrey, in the essence of time, I'll send it back to you.
Okay, awesome. I will really quick call out to any Penn State students that may be listening currently. There is an LGBTQ plus special living option on like University Park main campus in the West dorms, which are right next to the IST building. So really convenient if you live in that SLO, you can roll out of bed and be at class within 5 minutes. But that next question that we're getting on to is, how would you talk about the value of diverse identities within the workplace and within your specific area of the tech industry? And if we want to start with John for that one, that would be awesome.
Sounds good. I see that diverse identities are critical in the workplace, not just under the LGBTQ umbrella, but like racial minorities and everybody. As a project manager, we're tasked with managing implementations of solutions to problems that the business is facing. And so personally, to me, if you don't have diversity within your workplace, you're missing the diversity of thought. And so that means you're missing out on even better solutions or the ability to empathize with clients or guests for us at the parks. And it also allows us to provide better validation for solutions or approaches that we move forward with.
Thank you. Justin, would you like to add in?
Yeah, I think again, there's this dimension of D&I that focuses on, value to the business, right? And so on a moral level, it's the right thing to do, right? But unfortunately, on a tactical level, sometimes we have to find the right way to communicate that to the business, to decision makers, and that's how I've been able to influence change. And so I think I was fortunate to have attended a summit, a leadership summit on D&I that we conducted a couple of years ago, and it was led by Zoe Dunning, who's a prominent LGBT rights activist and researcher. And she was the one that who really opened my eyes to the data-driven view of this initiative and really the impact on, as I said earlier, on innovation, on thought leadership within an organization, and all the different things that contribute to a company or an organization's success, and really being able to quantify, this is what happens, whether it's a profitability issue or a growth issue or whatever it is. Here's how we quantify the value of diverse identities and of promoting diversity and hiring and advancement and those kinds of things from the perspective of driving that business value too. So just another another consideration, but something that I really enjoyed learning about.
And Lauren, would you like to add anything to finish that off?
In my recent job search, since I've been, it wasn't that long ago, one of the first things I did when I would fill out an application, I'd go and look at the board of directors for the company I was applying to, and take a look at the demographics that were being served. I can tell you there was a huge difference in where I was working versus where I am working now. And it's right down to the scrum teams that I'm on every single day. So, it starts from above and it rolls down. And so I think that's important. Employee resource groups are great, but they need to, take action. It has to go beyond that small group. And another cool thing my company's done is they have a mentorship program for minorities being your race, your sexual identity, your religion, your gender, disabilities in there. It checks tons of boxes. And so it'll actually pair someone who would like mentorship from a leader in the company, if they deem themselves as a minority of some type, and they go through a formal mentorship process. And it's to open up the barrier to entry to leadership for minorities, which I think is really tremendous. So diversity in the workplace is so important, and you have to look for it. You have to seek it out, because there are going to be those companies where it isn't valued as much as it should be. So it's a journey. You have to find it. Unfortunately, sometimes it's not as easy as it maybe should be.
Which that actually relates to one of the Q&A questions that we just received. So an attendee asked, can the panelists talk about ways in which IST and the other colleges can best support students who are questioning or afraid to come out? And they mention programs such as Safer People, Safer Places, which is a network that was formerly called Safe Zone, but they also say that that feels like a very passive measure by PSU and are wondering about what other methods of support that there are.
Yeah, I can jump in on that one. I know one thing, like over the last couple of years, I've taken a few interviews here and there. And one of the greatest things that I've seen come out of an interview was like, we started the interview with our introducing ourselves, and they included their pronouns. And to me, that was just like a huge wake up. Like, oh, wow, this is like, just that little thing made me feel way more comfortable about like my gender and my sexual orientation and all that stuff. And so I think just being conscious of those little things, and if you're a faculty and working with students, like when you introduce yourself, just include your pronouns so they know that they can feel comfortable introducing them with theirs. And I think seeking out different trainings just to make yourself knowledgeable about different areas, and it doesn't just have to be about things going on in the LGBTQ community, but other communities as well, are very essential to like helping people feel comfortable with their own identity. And maybe they don't need to come out to you, but they need to know, but it's nice to see that there are people that are open-minded working for Penn State, so they feel more welcome and when they're ready to.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, John. I remember when I first started seeing people including their pronouns and like their email signatures, and just that tiny little inclusive thing felt like such a big step, and seeing that representation as a non-binary person was really awesome. So, small steps forward do make a big difference in the future. So any other comments that Justin or Lauren would like to add to that question, or we can move on to the next one? Okay, so the other Q&A question that we have right now is, what role did the community of State College play in your experiences at Penn State? And before I give you all a chance to answer that yourselves, I'll take a stab at it myself. I'm actually from State College. I grew up here, ended up going to Penn State because my mom works for the university. And Penn State's really unique in that State College and the university kind of grew up together. You can't really have one without the other. And so whenever you go to college at University Park, you get very connected with the community as well. And State College, I think, is a very inclusive area, especially for Pennsylvania. It's kind of like a little bubble of, LGBTQ plus friendly events. And it's been a really, really great area for me to become my own person and really meet adults in State College who have lived experiences that I'm going through currently. So yeah, I would say that being in State College as someone who identifies as queer is very good and supportive, and there are some really awesome communities that you can join.
Yeah, I would echo that. I think, surprisingly so for me, both in a symbolic sense, right, as you were driving through town and just seeing advertisements for events and initiatives that the local community was undertaking. I think that was really encouraging, but also on a deeper level, yeah, we're residents of State College for those 4 years or more that were enrolled at the university. And though I didn't grow up there, my father is also a Penn State graduate, so I did spend a decent amount of time during my childhood up there. So definitely, I think it's a very friendly and welcoming place to be, and I felt very comfortable, as a student and resident there. I think even more so than I did kind of starting out my career in a big city. So interesting, but definitely encouraging as well.
I feel compelled to say, I think if we were talking to our colleagues of color, they might not say the same thing. And I think one of the messages I want to give today is to make sure that we are allies to all who are feeling underserved or marginalized, not only in our community here in State College, but anywhere. If we want to have the allied support that we do have, and we have tremendous support, we also need to give that back. So I grew up in this area, and I'm delighted to hear that your experiences today are great. But we have to remember that we are different than some other groups that need to be included when we think about diversity and inclusion.
Most certainly, that's a very, very important thing to remember always. And with that very important kind of footnote wrapping up that question, would you like to move on to the next one, Elizabeth?
I would, Aubrey, thank you. So folks, and maybe we can start with Lauren again. What are or were the resources you found helpful at Penn State in your current community or the State College community, if we didn't already mention it, and then at your employer? Lauren, you're on mute, sweets.
So I would say at Penn State and State College, I think everyone hit the nail on the head there. And since it was so late in my journey, I don't have really great examples of that. But I will say in my current environment, something that was really important for me in my latest job search was family benefits. That was incredibly important because my fiance and I are hoping to start a family with children very soon after we get married. And obviously it's not as easily done and said as it can be for hetero couples. So I was looking for companies that have really good benefit packages for families who need some assistance in creating their future families. And I was able to find that. So I think that's been a huge resource. Just honestly getting started on that journey to figure out what it's going to look like for you, even if it's 1, 2, 3 years down the road. There are waiting lists, for doctors and for treatments. And so getting ahead of that right now is, hopefully going to pay off for us. So that's been a really big thing, I would say, currently in my life, in my environment.
Justin, you want to take a shot?
Sure. I think I would just underscore again, my friendships, in my immediate social circles, I think, while a student and even today, are my best resource. I think it is through those relationships that I find support and encouragement and reassurance. And so that's been really valuable. I think, from the perspective of my professional career and my employer, again, my current company and former ones as well made, impressive investments in promoting dialogue around D&I. So just participating in workshops and panels, providing feedback when it is solicited. I think those are all tools that, we have a responsibility to take advantage of, and I've tried to do that. But, I encourage everybody, when those forums are made available, don't underestimate the potential impact of, speaking up and being heard when the opportunity presents.
And Lauren and Justin, you're both doing a really good job talking about like your priorities as individuals, which goes back to our job searching process when we're ready to move to the next organization, is understanding what's really important to us and helping us ensure that we're thinking about that as we're making decisions about changing companies or staying where we are if we really feel supported and happy. John, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, definitely. So one of the big things that I've been that I found within the Orlando community was they had a sports league for queer people, and that was just amazing for helping me find community in Orlando as I had moved there, and it had spun up after the whole shooting to help build community around the queer community. It really taught me a lot about how to go out and make new friends and all that great stuff, and how I would like to help develop and impact communities. And so that's kind of what helped me want to get involved in the Clinton County LGBTQ network that we've started just over a year ago now, here in Clinton County, Pennsylvania. As for Penn State, looking back, there's certain, being in Lock Haven, most of the time I'm not too far away from State College and get to see things like social groups like the State Queens, which are the Penn State drag queens, just doing their thing and putting on events and just bringing people together to have their own inclusive community. And there's things like that are there in State College that just make me smile and make me so excited that I was late to go to different shows while I was at Penn State. But it's nice to know that students are there and they have that that resource and way to get out and just kind of let their walls down and enjoy those kind of events. And then as for the employer, it's definitely great to see that there are some employee resource groups, but like everyone's been saying, it's mostly on making sure that they're doing the execution to make sure that everyone is feeling welcome. And if you are interviewing, whether it be for internships or full-time careers, make sure that if those are questions you have, make sure that you bring those in to your interviews, because just as much as they're interviewing you, you're also interviewing them to make sure that they're the right fit. And you if you have the opportunity, obviously not everyone financially has the opportunity to not take a job where they don't feel comfortable, but if you have that opportunity, you should make sure that you are feeling comfortable, even if that means a pay cut.
Excellent points. Aubrey, I'm going to return it to you so we can get through a few more questions.
Thank you, Elizabeth. So what are some ways that allies, such as faculty and staff, can support the LGBTQ+ communities and help students to feel included? Justin, do you want to start that one off?
Sure. So when I was kind of thinking through this, again, I was approaching the question from the perspective of, in a workplace professional setting, but I think the answer is very similar, when we talk about the role that faculty and university staff play, right? And in my opinion, that's really speaking up on behalf of those who may not be in a position to advocate for themselves for whatever reason, right? So, just being willing to be a voice, right, in a way that is safe and productive. I think the mechanics of how that's done really, depend on the situation and the nature of the conversations that need to be had, but sometimes it's a direct conversation with an individual who simply needs to hear, hey, that an action or comment or something of that sort was inappropriate, right? I think the key in a lot of these situations is assuming good intent in people, right, and being willing to approach conversations from the perspective of, here's constructive feedback to help you understand the way you're coming across and maybe the impact of the things that you're saying. But, in other situations, the answer is that there needs to be a more formal response, right? And so leveraging resources at the university or HR at an employer, right? I mean, there are various channels that exist for escalating situations when the need arises. And I think, we all hope that doesn't occur, but when it does, again, I think it's the responsibility of those who have influence and a voice to engage those channels and to, speak up and report situations that need, formal treatment, given that those affected for many reasons, don't always feel that they're able to do so without putting themselves at risk.
Yeah, thank you, Justin. It's really important for allies to recognize and utilize their privilege when fighting for LGBTQ plus rights and other rights of underprivileged groups. So now I will pass that off to Lauren.
Touched on this quite a bit. All I would really add is a great way for allies to show allyship is just to think outside their circle, outside their circle of how they identify as their gender, if they're able to think about if they were disabled, if they have a family that's been educated for multiple generations. Think about if you were a first generation person going to university. Just small ways to kind of think outside who you are in that very moment can help. Saying your pronouns, we talked on that. If you're giving examples for, I don't know, a classroom scenario, instead of saying husband and wife, very much say a married couple or two partners. Just constantly trying to challenge yourself to think outside of who I am in this very moment and what the people around me, who they may be, and how can I relate to them or help them feel comfortable.
Thank you, Lauren. John, unless you have anything new and exciting to add, for the sake of time, I think I might kick it back to Elizabeth for the next question.
Yeah, just a quick point, like everyone had within the community, there's also community groups under the umbrella of queerness. So just while you may think you're doing a great thing for people who are gay or lesbian, that doesn't mean that things stop there. Not we have the trans community that is going through a lot, and then even within them, the Black trans community isn't always represented as the trans community may be. So there's a lot of different hurdles within the minority groups that there are even minorities within. So just keeping an eye out and understanding what's going on and being open and welcoming to not be exclusive. Like Lauren had mentioned, I think I saw something the other day on Facebook where a teacher stopped referring to their students' caretakers as parents, and they started just referring to them as grown-ups because you never know the situation that someone's going through. And so I just think that is just hitting the nail on the head of just being conscious of those little things, and really is just very helpful to the community.
Yeah, thank you for adding that on at the end, John. Elizabeth, if you'd like to ask that question.
Yeah, so we're going to switch up a little bit here. How has the corporate social responsibility influenced your perspective on diversity? And has this influenced your job searches? And have you had employers that had an LGBTQ resource group? And Justin, I know you have an internship opportunity, so we're going to go to you first, and you can speak about that after you answer the question, if you don't mind.
Sure. I think, again, it really ties back to just taking advantage of the mechanisms that hold employers accountable today, right? So I won't go back through all of that, but just, again, taking a look at those resources and knowing how to filter and understand where people are coming from, when contributing to those forums. I think there's a lot of information available today that wasn't necessarily available not too long ago. So make use of that. But yeah, I'm happy to share more information offline with anybody interested, but we do have an annual internship program, and we also have full-time opportunities that we are recruiting for on a continuous basis. So again, happy to post that, share links, but definitely, actively seeking qualified candidates, and we are making a conscious effort these days at Coalfire to promote D&I in our hiring efforts. So I'm excited to help advance that initiative. But yeah, that's how I'd answer it. Just kind of use what's out there.
Thanks, Justin. John, you want to follow, please?
Sure thing. We do have an LGBTQ resource group at Universal. Sadly, have not gotten involved as kind of other aspects of my life have been put forward before that. But I think corporate social responsibility is becoming a huge factor in today's job market, especially with the upcoming generation, which I personally love to see. And like seeing things like Lyft take on an initiative to help people in Texas get abortions, and Airbnb help with the refugees in Afghanistan. It just makes me look at like what requirements I've got in my head for a new role and position. And it's definitely made me a little bit pickier with what kind of companies I've looked at when considering a career change.
Lauren, do you have anything to add? Thank you, John.
This just actually sort of made me think of something outside of my work life, since I sort of touched on how I found this new company and some of their endeavors that really were close to my heart, which is why I ended up ultimately working for them. But in my personal life, I was just thinking that even choosing someone like a wedding vendor has been a little bit of an obstacle for my fiance and I. And I think, as the simplest thing of just saying LGBTQ plus inclusive or friendly, if you're a vendor or a small business, or on the side you do photography or videography or florals, whatever, that can go a long way. Like, I can't tell you how many vendors we've honestly just said, yeah, let's go with them, because we know for sure, right? We don't have to get caught in an uncomfortable situation. So it's like little things like that I wasn't expecting to have to think about, but this, that has influenced my wedding vendor search. A little different from corporate job search, but something I thought of.
That's a great addition, because we have to live this all through our life, not just at work or not just at Penn State. It's, whether we're supported or not matters everywhere we go. I would just say, for those job searching, most big companies have their own corporate social responsibility report that they post on their website. And if you have issues that you're particularly interested in how a company handles, I would really suggest you review that report, maybe even in preparation for the interview process, so that you're asking well-honed questions if it's something that's really critical to you beyond LGBT. Aubrey, I'll send it back to you, and I think we'll wrap up.
Yeah, thank you. So I have a fun question to wrap things up, and it is for Lauren and Elizabeth both, because it is about being a woman in tech. And so, who or what continues to help you succeed, and what would you recommend other women in tech to do for their own success? What kind of long-lasting connections have you made in the industry? And Elizabeth, if you'd like to start that off.
Yeah, so the most important thing is the network, right? So I think when I think about the way that I got my job at Starbucks, it was because 3 of my former bosses not only recommended me to the search company, but beat up on me when I was saying, gee, I don't know if I want to go to Starbucks. I don't know if I want to move to Washington. I haven't ever been in one of their stores. Why would anybody pay $3 for a cup of coffee, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I think the network helps you find situations that is going to be good for you. And I think that's really important. As far as women in tech, what I would say today versus when I came out of college is it's really important to be yourself, whatever that self is. If it's very feminine or very masculine or somewhere in between, it doesn't matter anymore. What matters is how smart you are, how collaborative you are, how much leadership you show, how much you care about your coworkers and perhaps your team. So I would just say the most important thing today is to find a place where you know you can self-actualize and just go for it. But also really, really pay attention to your network, especially your Penn State alumni network.
The only thing I'll add there is to find a mentor. So as a woman in technology, it's easier said than done to find a mentor. I know you've probably heard that a million times, but it will eventually happen naturally. My prior manager at my the job that I just left, I would consider her to be kind of my mentor as a successful woman in technology. She works for, she's a software engineering director for a team that's largely male. Her and I were really close confidants when I was on that team. And she was also very inclusive. She said things to me like, you and your fiance are going to make beautiful brides. She said these things about two women. Like, she was never scared to touch on the fact that I was who I was. Not only was I good at my job, but I also was a lesbian outside of work, and I was getting married, and she was inclusive of that. And so just little things, like I'll always hold those kind of little comments with me moving forward in my life. So finding a mentor is hugely helpful.
Thank you both. So I think with that, we are kind of wrapping up. Elizabeth, I believe I pass it back to you at this point.
Okay. Well, we had a fantastic conversation today. And the good and the bad of this is it could go on for another 3 hours and we still wouldn't cover all the various topics that are important. I really want to thank the IST leadership for putting this together on our behalf. I know that all of you that prepared for this spent a lot of time thinking through the best way to make your points important today, and I appreciate that. And we just love all the questions. We tried to think of some of them, and we got reinforced that the questions that were picked were good ones because some of them were repeated in the Q&A. And I think we just want to say, have a wonderful day. And again, thank you for joining us, panelists. High five to all of you. Aubrey, great job as a student on the panel, and IST team. Kim, Madhavi, and Rita, thank you so much.
Yes.
I think we'll say goodbye.
I do, before everyone logs off, I want to call out the next panel that is happening on October 27th. It is about disability awareness, and there will be some really amazing speakers there. So thank you everyone for participating. Thank you for watching. Thank you to the panelists for paving the way forward for students like me. And I look forward to seeing you all in the future.
Hey, Aubrey, just a quick note as well. I posted a link in the chat for career opportunities at my organization, but also happy to speak with anybody over LinkedIn to continue the conversation too. So feel free to find me there, but I appreciate the chance to speak with all of you today.